Lemon Amiga presents a play giant video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey there, welcome to a brand new season of the Lemon Play Guides and Reviews. And to kick everything off, I just thought I'd create this introduction video where I show you probably how not to play Super Hang-On in my vain attempt to try to complete the first level without using any turbo. While I attempt that, let's just take a look at some of the games that we'll be covering this season, and we open sometime soon with Doom. And yes, Doom was not officially released on the Amiga, but because this was supposed to be the 3D season, I thought I'd kick that off with the most popular and maybe the most well-known 3D game of all time, even though that really wasn't 3D, it was 2.5D. From there, we'll be taking a look at shoot-em-ups, and yes, half of the games in the next season will be shoot-em-ups. It's not one of my favourite genres. In fact, I'm pretty rubbish at most genres in the entire book. In fact, platformers and driving games are the only thing that I'm any good at. I can also report that the new season of the Lemon Super League competition has just kicked off on lemonamiga.com and on EAB.com, the English Amiga board, and it was a draw last year. Yes, both teams scored stalemate, so I'm hoping that at least one side manages to win that competition this year. If you want to enter, the first game is Rick Dangerous 2, and yes, I have put in a token score of that already. I will be practicing that a bit later on. If you fancy your chances at Rick Dangerous 2, or even just to play that, just for old time's sake, and just post your score, then why not enter that competition? It's fun, it's fantastic, and I really love the competition, and that's why I'm now hosting it after being a participant for so long. I have pre-recorded 45 games, and of those 45 games, 20 of those games will have some kind of 3D connection. Maybe they are 3D shoot-em-ups or 3D blasters, and 27 of those games will be literally shoot-em-ups, so that actually doesn't add up. 20 plus 27 equals more than 45, so there will be some crossovers, and 8 of those games we'll take a look at will be platform games, not including the Shadow of the Beast 2 game that we'll be also reviewing, and another exploring shoot-em-up game that I won't reveal at this time. This is precisely the moment in this attempt where I failed to negotiate that corner on the inside, and that means I literally ran out of time to record this footage and get through over the line. We'll be reviewing 1 puzzle game, 1 pinball game, 1 beat-em-up, 2 golf games, 3 driving games, 4 games which feature 2 player mode, and 5 games which are actually NTSC games, 4 of which are recorded in NTSC mode. This footage of Super Hang-On that you are looking at was created using Shot 97's NTSC mode, and there is still a black border around everything, but apparently that is supposed to be how the game was presented, nice and square, and it fills the screen. But have you ever wondered why, when you attempt to load Workbench on a Pal Amiga, there is a big border at the bottom before the actual Workbench appears and the command line interface disappears? Well, that is actually because the Amiga was created in America, and some of the games which were released for the Amiga were actually American games. and those I will enable NTSC games, because NTSC is the 60 Hz that those games ran on, and as a result the 60 Hz means that that is just a little bit faster than the 50 Hz, in fact another 10% faster, and that means that the game will run just a little bit quicker. Footage you can see was recorded in NTSC, and as you can see that is slightly smoother than the standard Amiga 500, or at least any Amiga which features the Motorola 68000 CPU. NTSC games are 200 scan lines in horizontal resolution, and that is doubled to 400 pixels screen height due to the TV's scan doubling effect on the old CRT TVs. This means the picture is in 4:3 aspect ratio. That's 4 across and 3 down, and yes, for every 4 across there should be 3 down, which means it is not square. That would be 4:4. It is slightly, ever so slightly elongated, but 4:3 is the square aspect ratio that I certainly grew up with on my old CRT TVs and the old monitor which I'm still looking at the moment. Games are played on a Pal Amiga, then that will try to faithfully reproduce the game graphic for graphic with 400 resolution on the screen. So instead of their screen being 640 or 320 times 400, which is NTSC, they would actually be seeing 320 or 640 times 256, doubled to 512. And 512 over 400 creates the black gap seen at the bottom of games when you try to play NTSC games on a Pal Amiga. NTSC games also run 10% faster, which might not sound like a lot, but that's why some games played slightly slowly on a Pal machine. The speed of music, sound effects, animations and even cutscenes were greatly enhanced in NTSC simply because that is the speed and the size of the screen that the game was designed to be in. Because when these creators over in America created these games, NTSC is what they saw on their screens. And so they drew in NTSC and they made the game as fast as it could be at 60 Hz, which means some of these games could use 60 frames per second, and that meant that these games were quite a bit smoother than you may remember. Prime example of an NTSC game played on an NTSC setup is Test Drive and Test Drive 2, and you can see instantly that it is smoother, it is full screen, and it is actually more playable than the one that we remember, because we were actually playing an NTSC game slowed down to 50 Hz on a Pal Amiga. games didn't appear fast on a Pal Amiga, this is why, and we lost that 10% speed because nobody bothered to convert these into the speed of the Pal Amiga, or at least upgrade the frames so that that would play exactly the same speed. So what we got to play was slightly shrunken down on screen, and knobs weren't circular and squares weren't exactly square because of that reason. Thought Test Drive 2 was just a little bit too slow and just a little bit not as smooth as I would have liked it to be, so playing Test Drive 2 in NTSC mode, even on a Pal Amiga, is like playing a brand new game. In fact, quite a number of games that I originally considered were just a little bit too slow before and just a little bit too jerky are actually much smoother and much faster, and of course full screen in NTSC. If NTSC can speed up Power Drone, then what can it do with Power Drift? Some games like Accolade's Grand Prix circuit are enhanced by the NTSC conversion, and yes, the Pal Amiga can play NTSC games in NTSC mode, and if you have an Amiga 1200 you can simply hold down both mouse buttons as you power on the machine and select NTSC from the boot menu. There was also a disc floating around which was an NTSC conversion, which was a resident memory allocation which actually reset the machine into NTSC mode. And yes, this is with an 030, but you can see in NTSC that really does enhance the experience. So maybe if you haven't tried NTSC before and you haven't really thought about this, then yes, why not check it out? Some games were even designed to be only smooth with a fast processor. Certainly Interceptor and this game Indianapolis 500 really does benefit from an 030, and then you can leave all the details on, and it's the same with Formula 1 Grand Prix. In NTSC you can see what the designers intended, fully circular dial as you can see, and the screen isn't squashed into the top half with a crazy black band and border taking up the bottom section of the screen. And even games like the famous Dune II, you can see more of the map, you can see more of the landscape, and this game is sped up and becomes just a little bit smoother if you swap into the native mode which the game was designed to be played in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Want the full screen cinematic experience with the game music played at the correct speed and all the art displayed at the correct aspect ratio, then your only alternative is to try it out. I received a comment on Lemon Amiga asking why does Space Quest and all the other Sierra games all play the music at the wrong speed. Oh, the game is not playing the music at the wrong speed, your Amiga is playing the game at the wrong speed, and just by tweaking and tuning that, and yes, if you are a tech head, there is a way to hardwire the machine with a switch, so you can switch between PAL and NTSC mode, as long as you have the Agnes, which came with 1.3 Kickstart ROM, and it has to be the A revision Agnes, or this will not work. Text printed on the screen appears just that little bit quicker, I noticed, in Monkey Island, and the scrolling appears to be just a little bit smoother, and all the commands that you can see are actually printed at the very bottom of the screen and not floating above a black border. Difference in speed means that the tone of the music is also slightly different, and most people say that the music is a little bit higher in pitch. If you have or played a game which was made in America, then maybe you would be wise to look out for this NTSC thing and make adjustments thereof. And these companies include Electronic Arts, Activision, Accolade, Lucasfilm Games, Sculptured Software, Epix, Distinctive Software Interactive, DSI, Softech, Cinemaware, Electric Dreams, Electric Zoo, SSI, Broadband, Interplay, Sierra, Microprose, Access Software, Capcom, Data East, or Sega, and anything that has been lazily converted by US Gold and lazy tier text ports. To close out this show, I will leave you with a number of examples of games that I found that were enhanced somehow using NTSC. Maybe they were full screen, maybe they played just a little bit faster, or maybe they were enhanced in some other way. But some of these games are native NTSC games, which I may have featured in the play guides before, and those were not at this aspect ratio, and some of these games are sped up just a little bit. This show was made with your support. Please subscribe, please check out the description, please support the show, and thank you again for watching. Thank you.